So are you like still playing ball?
No, I'm not running.
What do you mean you're not running?
Like
You're running for your life, right? Like you're like you are.
like I'm not running.
At a certain age, it catches up with you. Like I was actually thinking the other time, Guti. Like when I started jogging as well, I was like, yo, I'm not fit at all.
Yeah, that's it. So when you start jogging, like I remember our first session with the homie of mine. What happened is that we've got our usual Friday drinking spot. So me and this other friend of mine, like we both knew we are overweight. So I said, you know what, let's go run. So there was a Seamus marathon right over here, and then let's just go. Tungo Mayani Wangwan. Like it's not that deep. We went for our first. It was on Sunday. We walked it, like literally.
But it's addictive, right?
Yeah, it was 10Ks, but it took us like 2 hours 47 minutes to do 10Ks. We walked it, and but what we did is that the next Sunday we came back again, and the next Sunday, and the next Sunday, and you start seeing that you go from walking to a bit of jogging and stopping, jogging, stopping, to actually moments where you can do a K non-stop, and then you do a fast walk. Then all of a sudden you go from 2 hours 47 to 2 hours 10 to under 2 hours.
And how is that like discipline that you've entrenched in you just jogging and walking? Like how have you incorporated into your like personal life?
So the first discipline is waking up every Sunday, even if it's not a marathon, to leave the house at 5, to go pick somebody up and then go to my like consistently. And that discipline is not difficult because now you're doing something that you're enjoying and you can feel it. There's this change. I feel that the body is responding very well and I'm feeling better. I feel like we're now at an age where if you had discipline from your 20s into your 30s, it's late. Nothing's really going to change. If you're a person who doesn't like reading novels, you're just not going to be reading novels.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bold Exchange. I am excited to have this guest. I've been trying to get him to get on this show for the past couple of months. No, actually, it's been a year now. Masimba Marangwanda. How are you doing, man?
I'm alive, my brother.
Tell me, for our audience who don't know what you do, what do you do? I know that you deal.
Yeah. Construction, the steel is what started. Engineering, that's what I mainly do. That's my everyday. Then on the other side is a lot of consulting in different spheres, from finance down to just general consulting. So, but my main job is pretty much construction. That's what I'm now doing.
I was actually going, like when I was just doing my research about this interview, I was going, there's a picture I saw of you and your friend and you actually had graduated. Tell me, what's going through your head when you're being kept and one degree? I don't know whether you're forced to do it or not. Like, what's going through your
they
head?
Forced me to wear a suit because I don't like wearing suits. That's number one. But that was a while ago. Graduation actually still feels like yesterday, to be honest.
All right.
I was actually watching your interview with Norma.
All right.
It's a bad idea to come after Norma because
she came through, right?
She comes hard. Norma comes hard, and then she was talking about issue to do with Kukraundi and how it affects the same generation but from two different backgrounds. And it brought me back into our Solusi days. Like when I was listening to her, it felt like yesterday. Like these are the conversations where they're on campus. You will have them, but you're very cautious about how you...
Like you're walking on eggshells with everything.
You have to have them and they're very cautious. I mean, so when I thought about it, I was just like, this is, I don't know, almost, 15, 20 years ago. But I still remember graduation day. I still remember the week before graduation, how chaotic it is, how you get a letter and you're told, oh, you won't graduate because, you've got one result we can't find and you're panicking.
I thought they were about to say, like,
but I mean, look, it's been a journey to think that it's been that long, but it also talks about the defining period. To me, Solusi was a very defining period. I'll forever love that campus. So much I had learned then. We never liked it because, this is my SDA.
No, I understand. Because, you think campus is after high school, I need to be having a blast. Now you're like, it's more stricter than, like, what I thought.
What is going on, right? But I always tell people that when I look back at my life, that period defined me in so many ways. and I'll forever be grateful for who I am today because of that campus. And sometimes we just think that you want to be like mama, because we let media, you watch what Americans are doing in America and in university, and you think like, but you don't realize that we're two different people, like two different backgrounds.
So at what point do you then say, I want to get into the business that you are in, and what triggered that thought? You would have thought, well, let me take a break, or let me do what everyone else is doing, probably be a lawyer and whatever. What made you say, I want to get into this industry in particular?
So it was this is a family business. My old man started it, but he's not an engineer, neither am I. But it came out of an opportunity. But as the business was essentially growing, when you look at something that your old man has started, you also feel like, I want to play my part to ensure that this legacy continues, right? Because they would do things, and I look at a lot of family businesses. We were talking about one this weekend where, imagine you build something that you can see that this is a great company and this is a great legacy. And then you find out that your kids are not interested. They hop on planes, they go, they're like, whatever. For the founder, it becomes very difficult to then think, so what am I going to do with this thing? Is it going to benefit if my kids are not going to participate in this? So I always owed it to him to say, like, look, this is a space that he has created. Little did I know that when I got into that space, I actually enjoyed
get
into that space.
So what do you first, after you graduate, do you then talk about some kind of CV or
No, I stayed into the deep end. Right? But along the way, I eventually also, to be very honest, I also felt a bit fatigued. So I then just sat down and was like, nah, I'm going to Joburg for a bit. I'll back, went to Joburg, did that kind of my CV. You find yourself
trying to like earn your keep.
Also, because you realize, because in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, am I really as good as I think I am? Do I really add value? And when I was there, I learned so much, right? In the period that I was there, company I joined rose very quickly, which was fine. Then I realized that, okay, fine. Since I'm now ready to go back to Zim and I'm going back into the family business, you need to look at Zimbabwe, not the way Zimbabwe is. And I remember my first 2 weeks, every phone call I did in the morning before 9 o'clock, the conversation, Mawan, which becomes a negative thing, right?
That became
so the rest of the day,
like 10 Mawan is to the schedule. Yeah.
But when I was in SA, like we used to work with McDonald's and then Coca-Cola and all those guys, and you just realize that you have a sphere of influence. Focus on your sphere of influence. You can't change Ritiga, right? So let me look at what I can build. In my influence allows me to go from this point to that point. I can't change the politics. I can't change so many other things. So that should not be where my energy should go. My energy should go to where I know I've got the best and the greater impact. So you look at the business, you look at saying, how do I, help and add value? But also being very sensible to say, this thing is a standalone business. This should not seem like this is a family business or this chinichedu. I need to respect this entity like I'm working for somebody else.
So at what point does, and that's one of the problems that a lot of people face, where like at what point does the first generation, then does your dad or your old man trust you to say, yo, I think you can run this and I think you're perfect. At what point does he realize that, I think this boy is doing great? And the other question I want to add on to that is, how like kind of and then they always think that the funny thing is that people tend to think that you have it you have it easy, but you actually have it the hardest.
So I'll start with your second point, because you asked it. You gave me a 2-point question. I always believe that I should outwork everyone, including the owner,
because it directly affects Sazare.
Right. If I outwork you, you never think you realize that this guy pulls his weight. Okay? So that has always been my philosophy. And I always tell my team, I jokingly say to them, at some point, if I outwork you, surely I should fire you.
I don't need you.
But I say it jokingly, but it's to create that philosophy, Kuti. You need to pull your weight because you are the one that everyone is paying attention to. Everyone wants you to mess it up, right? And you don't want that. But also you need to have a relationship with people where they feel that you respect them enough as your peers who you're working with, and you don't walk around and say, I want to. So I have to be the first one where if safety talk is at 7:30, 7 o'clock, I'm at the office. When everyone starts checking in and they see you're always constantly at the office first, they will respect the fact that you're constantly at the office, right? So I always believe in that. Back to your first question. Generation X, do they trust millennials? I was once brought to a panel that discussed family businesses. It was set up last year. And on that panel, there was the first generation who had started a financial institution, an insurance company, and I was the second generation. And we were having a conversation on. And in that conversation, I realized that they trust you enough, but it's also very difficult for them to let go of. And I remember what he was saying was, he was like, I work with my son and whatnot, but, he likes to fly all over the world, buy fancy cars and chichi. And I literally said,
same, like you're a rainy day.
So I then said, no. And working with my old man, I've realized that generation will always say, you can't afford to mess it up. So I have to be hard on you. But they won't necessarily come and pat you on the back and say, no, I think I'm ready to let you manage this thing. No. They're always there watching because this is their baby. And rightfully so. And I mean, look, we're turning 20, the company's turning 21 this year. 21 years of trying to build something is not something you want to hear that has been, mismanaged badly.
I mean, you raise a kid for 21 years. I mean, I was going to
Right. I don't get I'm going reckless in chichi. So I totally understand that you might not necessarily ever hear and be told. And in the back of their mind, you need to also be realistic. It's possible that there's somebody out there who's actually better than you, right? And it's not, for me, something that I'm going to say it's on a silver platter. My mind never thinks along those lines. The question is, how do we add value to ensure this thing outlasts?
And I like where you're going with this, the direction you're taking with this whole generational wealth and these generational companies, right? But I always ask myself, Kuti, why is it that we look at institutions and companies that are white owned, right? And you'll find that they'll tell you, Security Tax company 120 years ago. You mdarago tax company mna 2005. Akusira iwewe tax utengesa like how do we build this generation of like black owned companies that can actually be passed down from generation to generation to generation?
So also the first thing you need to pay attention to history is that a lot of company founders 120 years ago, first time new companies, right? Buddha. Unlike now where Warutanga Mataya, there are already 20 other companies that do that. I always believe that the conversation between family-run businesses don't happen. Okay? So in the 20-odd years that I've worked, we've never actually said, let's go and sit down with the Chingwenas, for instance, with Kroko, and have a conversation with. And when I met Mdala Chingwena, we met at a funeral, and we had this conversation. We don't talk about it enough to say family-run businesses are the most sensitive of the lot.
about how sensitive like family-run companies are. Like you're saying,
Very sensitive. They are very sensitive. So there's no grouping where family-run businesses sit around and talk about what their experiences are. So they're just expected to survive. But when you look at other countries, they actually have these public forums. They even have down to magazines that speak of the different challenges that families have. Because families, they're all very political when you really, really look at it, right?
True.
And the politics of a family, you can imagine a husband and wife, right, who work together. Vakanitsana kumba.
It's going to affect
the office.
The office is crazy.
The office is crazy, right? And what happens when one Mdara decides, look, my son, or my favorite, Panongwe stepson Budog, who also then comes in and says, I want to be part of the family, right?
And then I've got a right, this is my
I have a
birthright.
right,
Yeah.
right? And it is their birthright. So it is the dynamics of family businesses that need to be, spoken about, but we don't.
And also maybe Bamnini will be thinking to you, remember uchine bazi wani ndakamudembo kudira fuel you, and I feel like I gotta stay. And those are not documented stuff, you know what I mean?
No.
We sent you to varsity, ticket rako. We feel like when you become a success, we've got shares.
We've got rights on you.
Yeah, I totally get it. And so like what are some of the skills that you are imparting on your young ones as well, like as you grow in business and as you go forward with this conversation of like family business? Do you want your young ones to actually learn anything that you're doing?
So firstly, I don't want them to think that they're going to come into the business first. I would want them first to try and explore, because a pressure point. Okay, that means I need to be, when the Sekuru takes them to the farm, once ago I start, we're being told we have to be engineers, right? So you can tell that to him he's already seeing, but to me I want them to follow their path and to first identify what they want to do. Okay, my son likes talking about AI a lot, so talking about I think there's AI. My daughter likes doing a lot of acting, so I want them to first identify. But in terms of what the skill set that I have, so when they were growing up, I always used to say to them, if you need money to spend, you need to do chores. We do a list of chores. Every chore has its own price. Whatever chore you do and it gets signed off by either the helper or their mom or whatever, I pay you, you spend your money. You don't work, you don't spend. There's no coming to, can I have money for this? And then I started teaching them something else, that, okay, if you want me to get you something, you need to come and bargain with me. I give you, you give me.
That's how the world works.
There's no, you need an iPhone, and I just buy you an iPhone for Christmas.
Because you're my daughter and I love you.
You need to bargain. So they'll come and they'll bargain and they'll be like, right.
This make their case.
So I wanted this and I'm thinking that I can trade off for this. And then like, I don't think the value is the same. So it's like my daughter, she's in grade 7. So there's a school that we want her to go to, and there's a school that she wants to go to. And she did a whole 9-page PowerPoint to say, the school I want to go to has all these advantages over the school you want me to go to. Literally, PowerPoint, with pictures, everything. I just got home and she was like, right, I need to show you something. Sat down, I'm like, And she was writing, and look, this school is also cheaper because I've researched their fees is X amount less, and. So she now knows, Kuti, for me to get my way, I have to reason and convince this guy. Kuti, this is to your benefit, not mine, right? And I feel like it's a skill set that they'll definitely need. My other daughter, who's now in university in the States, literally she's applied for jobs, gets her jobs, she goes and she works, and there's no, did I need money for this? No, And then the other day she literally was like, comes in the family group, she's like, right, going forward, Netflix, I'm paying from this side, it's on me, right? And you're sitting there and you're like, but
what's the catch?
But why? But you can tell, but she also feels proud that I'm working and I'm contributing, right? To, it might be just Netflix, but for me as a father, you're feeling proud she's learning to be responsible and learning to know how to balance finance and know that this is what I can do. So it's those skill sets that you try to teach them.
And do you feel like as black as African families, do you feel like we have a problem just having uncomfortable conversations, whether they're about health, marriage, money, feelings, emotions? Do you feel like that's where we really like fail a lot, at that area whereby we don't communicate well about money and just about finances and just
Yeah, okay, so that one is always a tricky one because communication, yes, we have our failings. But if you look at how our society is set up, anatete ndo aenda wachitara nevana vasikana kuti, you can't do this, you can't do that. And then anatete, are part of that village, right? That nucleus that raises a child. When it comes to things to the modern world, managing finances, I think, we always left it to the school who teach or some institution who teach. But we never sit down and say, right, because those conversations are difficult. Because you and I grew up in a household where the conversations were never had, because they also grew up in a household where
with the conversation. The dad was never seen.
It was very difficult to be had. So when you look at it, you say, okay, are we now saying that our generation is like our parents' generation, or we're actually a bit better? Like we go to restaurants with our kids, which allows us to talk and get to know if they're okay. We look at doing trips. Let's go hiking. Let's take walks. That's a form of communication where we improve. When we look at how we grew up, it's yes, tennis called mabuza, but at some point when you grow up, it's like you're on your own. Like,
and it was once in a while where you hung out with your dad. And
my husband is going. I was a family meeting at Christmas or some family function. Then Maguta say, now we're enjoying Makutaora. But I think that we've got our ways of speaking, but those conversations will forever be very difficult. And I don't think it's just in black society. I think even other societies, they struggle. Do you think when you look at the Indian community, with the way they're so religious and strict, they will be able to just sit there and just start saying, right, yeah, the boys, I think it's also hard for everyone.
I totally get you, right? And like just talking about adulting and thinking about adulting, right? Just thinking about adulting. What has been your like toughest experience when you're like, here adulting showed me flames? Cause me, it's been lost. Hey, I remember losing my sister was like crazy. Like, I was like, yo. And just this idea of, how when you're young and you look out to everyone, and then when you're old, you're getting 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 calls, and everyone is like, yo, Tono or something. Yeah. Like, what's been the tough experience in adulting with you?
Final year, first semester, so I get a phone call that my mom just had an accident at the farm and she's no more. My old man is in Zambia at our Zambian branch. He's driven there. And I've got 2 young brothers in school. The first thing that comes to my mind is, shit, what am I going to do? Right? Because, one, I'm mad. I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, how did my mom die? What are we talking about? You're trying to process that thought. You're getting on the bus. You're driving all the way. And I'm thinking, my old man's in Zambia. He has to drive from Lusaka knowing that his wife is no more. What is going through his mind?
At what speed is he moving at?
Like, because in my head I was like, he's the biggest loser, Panapa. Because it's just Chakura. Then I'm thinking, I've got 2 young brothers in high school.
How are they how will they?
What are they going to? How are they going to process which their mom's not there anymore? And I remember that whole funeral. I refused to cry because I kept on saying, "This is." I've got young brothers.
I have to be strong for these guys.
I have to be really strong. And I remember when we did body viewing, because it was a bad accident. Like, you could tell that she got hit by something, and you're trying to hold it back, because now you're seeing that for the first time. I'm seeing my old man break down. Okay, and I'm looking at my young brothers, and they're also like broken and they're shattered. But this is the reality we're facing. We just have to go on. That was the hardest thing, because at that time, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. You're just saying this is not real. And as a coping mechanism, I even remember that there are parts of life after that funeral that my mind did not store.
Just blocked
like
out.
Blocked out. Like it never happened.
Like with loss, like with me, it doesn't hit me when I hear it, right? It hits you when, whether it's the coffin that's going down, and like that tune, that Catholic tune that they'll be playing there, you'll be like, yo, now it's real. Or it's usually the body view, something.
Yeah. And at the same time, my grandmother just lost her daughter, and it was a year or so after she just lost my sekuru. So I'm also looking at her,
Like, how do you deal with it?
So that is at that point when I realized that adulting is tough, right? This is what the real world is all about. You still need to get back on campus and walk into class, into lectures, and study and pass to get your degree. And everything is happening at the same time. And sometimes you feel like you're not in control. You feel like, how am I supposed to navigate? How am I supposed to? So that was a really, loss is, like you said, like it's.
And like, speaking about adulting, right? I was talking to you earlier on, Kuti. Like, it just hit me, right, when I was just going before we were on set, Kuti. We are actually now the new adults, right? And we're barely, we just scratched the surface with the information that we got from like a cultural perspective, Kuti. Like, just things being passed down to us. Like, I remember I was talking to our producer yesterday, Saga, like, what's the procedure when someone dies, or what's the procedure? Like, the different procedures that as a man you need to know, or as a human being you need to know. Okay, so how best can we preserve that, and how are we the last of a dying breed?
I don't know if we can say we are last of a dying breed. But has this documented? There's no document or somewhere, but there's no how do you manage? I know
like how our parents or your gogo, your mom has this. Pane vamwe sekuru so vari vanorwa musombo so but vanonzi cool, but at the most key events at the family panotonzi amana enda munotora sekuru ningi ndo vanogona kuti
zvifambe
nyaya yese ifambe. Like those are some of the things that I feel like we're losing in because people are working hard, and people barely have time for each other. Unless maybe Christmas or funerals. Mostly people are linking up, families are actually linking up at funerals. And then when they disperse, the next time I see my family is at a funeral again. That's what most people are actually.
But the question I then ask is, the generation before who didn't have cell phones and the internet, how did they communicate? How did they keep together? Is it because I think there was a middle class back then. There were more people who were working. There were more people who were all over. Like right now, everyone's cramped in Harare.
True.
Right? So we are Tilimuno, Harare. But back then, you have people saying, but they would understand each other. They would know each other. They
would visit each other.
When you go to those said events, like funerals or Christmas, whatever, you can tell our parents' generation, my cousins,
they even knew their cousins because they had fourth, sixth cousins. Hey, and you'd be
and you're like, how you can't even remember that uncle's name, even if you see them every other year. But why are we so detached? Like, that's the question I always ask. Like, why do we not use? We might underestimate, your WhatsApp groups, but those are the tools that help us to try to stay in touch with each other. You know what? We've got a very big family group from our side, from the Marangwanda. It's pretty big, and we were all recreating the family tree, Kuti Generation E, and it was so fascinating.
How back did you guys trace it back to?
Went back 3 generations? I think, yeah, we're trying to hit 4. So I'm talking like
1800s? No, 1900.
19th, yeah.
19s.
Yeah.
Yours is traced back from when? 1800, 1900?
1820, 1830.
Shice, yeah, this guy's
And for us to get to the 1900s, and it came from a
was
conversation.
1905, I think. 1905, Magawana Matresa generation back to 1905, yeah.
Even though the conversation, how it started, was one of those, we are losing the touching memories of knowing who was who, right? So the discussion was, because we still have institutional memory right now of those who are alive, let us do this now. Let's not wait to think that it's going to be done by someone else. And that's when you start seeing the breakdown when they're now doing the tree. And then you're like, yeah, okay. So this is, and that's when you find out, 4 generations ago was the person with the same name you were given now. I
know my name came from somewhere, right? And you were talking about something interesting. You said that we're all cramped up in Harare, right? And speaking of Harare, right, like there's a lot of construction happening all over. Like everywhere you drive to, I say the Aruvaka tuck shop or someone is building a warehouse or whatever. Saka, does that mean that Maruti ended up in Zimbabwe?
I should ask you, because all that construction is not debt. There are no mortgages. So where are people getting money to build? That's the one thing I always ask everybody. When you go Unopons, there's a
when
new.
You say it's not mortgages and like no one is getting, like that's cash. People are building the cash.
Where? Who's loaning the money?
Are you telling me that banks are not loaning anyone money to construct right now, or are banks moving into real estate?
Banks are. I'm sorry to say, there's a lot of bankers going to hate me. Banks are rupas and badzo. You cannot be told you've been given a mortgage for 5 years.
And with the interest rate of what?
15, 16%. So people are not really taking mortgages. People are self-funding. They're self-funding these projects. That's what I always say, that when you want to now move to bigger projects, that's when you can talk about having pension funds coming in, right? But when you now look at housing developments, Kuti, Wakatasa, the spot I love talking about is Aspindale, right? Aspindale just shot up. And one thing about Aspindale, that if you want to pay attention, you will not find complete house, incomplete house, complete house, incomplete house like you get in other areas.
It's just, it went, go on, yeah.
Right? With people who are staying in. Where do they get that money from?
Aspindale as was the Cape Z.
Aspindale is a project, and that was started by Billy Rottenberg.
It's Rottenberg. He's the one who.
Hey, Billy, I'd love to sit down with you for interview. I've been talking to my producer saying, yo, please get me Billy Rottenberg to sit. I really would love to sit down with him. Okay.
Again, yeah. There's a lot of. So you have the people like the Billies, right? The Ken Sharps. They're finding ways of raising the type of cap to do it, right? But even if you look across the project, like Ken Sharp, he sold them the land, but look at the amount of houses that are popping up and coming around. So when you now then go to Mabazua or Kukurua, people are literally out of pocket. And you ask yourself this question, where's this money coming from?
Do you think the diaspora has a part to play in this?
I do. I think diaspora is a part to play. I think people have also learned how to, put money under the pillow and let it accumulate, and then they eventually start building slowly. Some bit by bit. Even if it takes them 5 years, it's out of pocket. There's a lot of infrastructure in terms of clusters happening. I kind of think the bubble is about to get to its peak. But you're getting a lot of people who are now saying, okay, fine, we want to sweat our capital. So the money is there. Unfortunately, this money would be nice if it's set with the banks. And the banks would come and say, right, we want to give out money for 30 years, right? And then you're paying $400, $500 a month in mortgage. And you can sustain it, right? And it's not a problem. And because the banks will then just say, right, we're now funding the whole the whole project. That means you walk into your house in 12 months, and then you're in the bank for the next 25, 30 years.
And-
Yeah, Muruguiran. But we don't have that yet.
Why
Which
do you
is
think
with
that is?
we don't really have a middle class, and we don't keep money in the bank for too long.
Okay, I always want to ask that, and I always want to ask people who always say that we don't have a middle class. What determines the middle class? Because I mean, we've got professions that are meant to be middle class professions, right? And we've got people who are actually waking up in the morning and saying, "Well, we're going to work," and they're working jobs that are classified all over the world as middle class. So when you say we don't have a middle class,
Well,
what do
firstly,
you
if
mean?
government should not have said to create a middle class by 2030. that in
means
itself
that- it means it-
that in itself
they acknowledge that
shows
doesn't
that the middle class is not. So when we talk of a middle class, this is the class that creates the financial foundation that allows for banks to loan money out.
Yeah.
Okay, and pension funds to send their monies into banks and put into financial instruments. People, when they get paid, they don't get pay slips. They don't get money into their bank account. They don't get to the second week. Mario is not going to withdraw.
Second week, second day, my
Right.
guy.
So, but if you go next door, you'll find a 24-year-old accountant driving his little car that is paying 4,000 a month plus insurance, and is paying his little rental at some place because he's not ready for a mortgage. But you can tell Kuti, when the money comes in, he's not trying to spend it. Because the financial system will encourage you to leave money and give you promotions. Say, no, don't spend your money as much.
You're incentivized not to spend money.
Right. Unlike us, it has to stay at home. And a conversation I had yesterday with my work colleagues, I asked them the question, outside of your rental, what is it that the ZIG you can't use to pay for? Your landlord is the problem. Because they'll be like, US dollars. Perfectly, fine, no problem. But if the business was to say today, no, we want to pay you 50% ZIG, 50%, where would you have a problem? What is it that you can't do in a ZIG now? You know? And even if I ask you, like right now, outside of your rental and your fuel, but what is it that ZIG can't do? You can get your groceries, you can...
Yeah,
so
the basics, I can live on.
you can live. Yeah. You can actually live on it. But we don't have that spending culture, and we don't have... So we've got a lot of informal people. And a lot of informal people, they don't bank. They don't pay taxes. And the formal businesses are the ones that are sustaining.
Is it all? Do you think also, Nyai, we'll come into the ZIG, do you think that people always tend to want the US dollar because they feel like it can always retain its value? As in,
Yeah.
it's the safest bit. Like
It is. And it was always going to be very difficult. And if you look at history, I don't even think there's a country that dollarized
and then really got bounced
and
back.
managed to bounce back. To de-dollarize is going to take a lot because it's a mental thing. This is what the market wants. The market wants the US dollar. To tell someone ukuthi tago visa US dollar,
Panita chaos.
Pantita chaos, right? Because people want to get US dollar, know that it's there, and to them they don't want. So for that to happen, we need to have our currency stable for a while, 10 years maybe, And you want the market to start to reject the dollar on its own.
Oh, okay.
Right. So if I was looking at policy, they're saying that the current US dollars will run until 2030. I think that's a short time. Make it indefinite to 2050, 2060. It's fine. Then try to create systems and ways to have people say, I actually don't want the dollar anymore because I get, better promotions.
I'm better incentivized when I use this.
When I use the ZIG, right? And then allow the market to eventually say, no, I want ZIG. But you need to have that social contract, and to have that buy-in from everyone. like
Correct.
from business, because business is also the problem. Okay? They also want US dollars. They also want to put them in a safe at a bank.
In an offshore somewhere or whatever
You
they
get
do.
it.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of work to be done. It's difficult to try and convince people to just say, no, but you need currency. You need to let the currency stand on its own. And people they'll buy into it if done correctly.
You're a fairly young man, and how do you deal with the pressure of like right now you month in, Pane new month, and how do you deal with the pressure of just knowing that I've got so many families that I'm responsible for, and if I just miss this payment today, even the next morning you'll be just getting this.
You don't sleep. It's not an easy thing. So what you have to do is just always the pressure is just trying to understand, but also work with the right team that appreciates good. There are certain cycles that happen. Okay. Even this year, I've heard of a lot of big companies that are struggling to just pay salaries, and it's a common thing. It's not something that companies are not experiencing all over. But the pressure is always real because you're always having to think, in like 2-week cycles. Today we've managed to do this, but tomorrow we need to do that. Tomorrow needs this to be done. You have to be able to plan. You now need to know which buttons to press and how to close the loop. And the one thing you can never do is to say you don't know.
You the guy,
always have to have a
you're
plan.
the guy with the answers.
You always have to have a plan.
How did you navigate COVID?
So COVID, we got some work out of NGOs who were pretty much just doing work related to COVID. There were some structures they required done. So that's how we managed to survive COVID. But I remember when we were sitting at the office, because we look at risks and a lot of risks that happen in the business. So we identified that, there's this thing that started in China that's now gone into Europe. So China has locked down. Europe, the countries are now locking down. And we asked ourselves the question, so what will happen
If we lock down.
So we managed to create a 3-month buffer to just say,
We had a safety net for
a safety net for 3 months. If things go pear-shaped, at least for 3 months, we can take care of people. It's part of the thing that we always have to do. Always try to understand your risks as a business all the time.
Like I always put, like the reason why I always put this flag here is it's a reminder of the promise of a greater Zimbabwe and of how patriotic we are as a brand and as a company, right? Are we going in the right direction? Because I see you always posting about like infrastructure development that's happening in the country, and
I get
someone who's really
shot
proud
for
of,
it.
Yeah, like someone who's really proud of, he was really proud of their country. I don't travel any country without my flag in literally my flag, not this one.
Yeah, but your
the
flag,
big one, yeah.
Nice.
I mean, are we going in the right direction, like as a country, and what are the few things that we just need to tinker around with to make it work?
I've seen this country on its knees, 2007, 2008. And that was a bad moment. I think where we are now, we are moving in the right direction. My posts on infrastructure is just me telling a story that, there are things happening left, right, and center. And these things, I tell the story in a way of just saying, people are getting employed, development is happening where it's happening, and sometimes we need to celebrate the small wins that we have, right? Like, this is our country, like it or not. This is our motherland. There's one or two things that we need to tweak. Corruption is one thing that we really need to tweak. I think it's something that my fear is the millennials who are going to take over from Gen X are going to latch onto this belief that
you have to be corrupt for business to be done.
Yeah, or it's easy money, or it is what it is. We need to understand that we are building this country not for us, for generations. I say the same thing even for the company that look, I would love the third generation after me to also feel proud that 120 years ago, this is
This
what
guy
was
is-
started.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Never met him, but we know that he started this thing, and we need to make the right decisions. Number two, I think we need to participate more. Politics. It's not, well, for me, it's not politics for me, but I would want to see someone I know, someone I believe in, someone I know. If I call you tomorrow and I'm like, hey, my guy, you know,
About like someone you understand what their value what they stand for. Yeah.
So it's one of those things where like I got a brother of mine who was made deputy minister, and like in his first week he then called me. He's like, "Well, you need to have a whiskey." I went to the house, and we were at his mom's house, and we were drinking, and I just said to him, "My guy, I will beat the living day out of you if you ever do any nonsense." And
You know the way you said he called me and said, "Where are you?" I thought he was about to give you like a deal.
No. We were because we walked the journey during his campaign. So, but I mean, it's that honest conversation where I want to invest, knowing that the policy that you are going to drive will represent the greater good for my business, for society, for everyone. So I'd love to see a lot more of us. In the last campaign, I was happy to see a few faces of people I know who were participating primaries in different political parties. We should all still be able to sit around the table and discuss
and
different
ideas, from different.
You get it,
yes, yeah.
right? So I think we are moving in the right direction, but we need to participate a bit more, and we shouldn't be too upset when we see people we don't like, but we are sitting back there and we are not wanting to participate.
True.
You know, we need to contribute the best way we can. So I think we are moving in the right direction.
All right. So tell me, what's the fascination with that particular brand of watches? Like, tell me what's the story?
Yeah.
You're low key obsessed with these watches.
Yeah,
like,
no,
what's the
I
story?
am, and I've got like 5 of them, different ones.
Yeah. What's the story there?
So the watch was this is a watch that I just grew up seeing.
Guys, this is a Patek Philippe,
Worth $500,000, 100%. So we all knew this watch, right?
Yeah.
So so I was in Joburg, and then a friend of mine called me up and he said, you know what, we are here for a training program. Cool. And they had people from all over. And then, all right. So we go out for drinks. And the one chick who was from Colombia. And then she had the gold Casio watch. So I literally said, I'm like, I haven't seen that watch in years.
Yeah.
That's a really nice watch. And then she literally said, do you like it? I'm like, yeah. And then she took it off her hand and she put it on my hand and she's like, there's a gift. Because we'd been spending time with him the whole weekend. She was like, look, there's a gift. You've been a great person or whatever. I'm like, cool. So I just started wearing it as a watch. What then happened was I started posting the projects we were doing. And I used to call them project updates. And then I picked up that there were certain handles that started doing the same thing. And now I was a bit frustrated and I was like, look, I don't want to dilute my own content and storytelling with, So we were in Blue Air, standing over a project that So I was across the road and I was about to take a picture. Then the person I was with then said, hey, what time is that meeting we were supposed to go for? And then so I was holding my camera and then I lifted my watch and then it hit me. And I was like, no, man, I need the watch to tell the story.
All right.
Right.
Isn't the time...
The Casio watch would then... So I then did that. And then I realized the more I posted, the more people then identified the watch as... Because some would talk about projects and they'd be like, it's not true, that project doesn't exist. And I remember this one handle said, as long as we see the watch, we know the project is real. Okay. And it just blew up like that. Like, it started growing. What I did not anticipate was the impact it had. So, I'll go to certain places and get introduced and people will be like, You're the Casio guy. And at first you just like, it's a once-off. And, you go to a funeral and you get like a politician and you be like, fana we Casio, yeah, banaba, Timbo Taura. Then you can tell that people across generations can relate to the
that,
brand.
yeah.
Okay, grandfathers, our fathers, even
Us.
we can relate to the brand. So that's how I started doing the Casio storytelling. And yeah, that's
How do you cure? You mentioned something that triggered a question in me. How do you cure that? Where if you post a good Zimbabwean story that someone says, or like someone thinks that, like how do you cure that where every single time you try to tell a good story, someone wants to actually then put politics into it?
so
Or just try to discredit it. Like,
Yeah.
like it's like, how do you want your country to fail so bad that you want to dismiss any good thing that comes out from your country?
But it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to have those people because this is what society is, right? Not everyone is going to be, What I've always said is that I will respect the platform and the citizens. So I have many posts where people will come and literally bash you, right, for posting, like Zogchodaro, right? And I don't fight, I don't shout. Whatever it is, it might be negative. My response is always clear. Bless you. And that's it. And we keep moving because I'm not supposed to be emotional. This is content I'm giving. This is what's actually happening. It's like now with the chaos of the roads right now happening in the city, you get a lot of backlash from people. Just get to a place where it's drinking, everyone just like, my roads, but that's the content. You will always have people who want to burn the house down. And you can't change them. But I always try to make sure that my content is non-partisan. This is what is happening in Zimbabwe. This is not a party thing. This is not, a government thing. No. This is a project. And I only post projects that I participate on, right? That I have information on. I'm not going to talk about content on projects that I'm not participating on because I want to be as factual with the information I have. And if somebody comes and they ask questions, I can answer those questions. So I try to avoid, by all means necessary, the fights because you're also just expending unnecessary energy.
And to date, what's been your favorite project that you've worked on?
That sounds going to be controversial. Mount Hampton villas. The villas that are being done, they're being constructed now. I think to date they have to be, in the longest amount, that has to be one of my favorite projects. It was high pressure. We have no time. There's no compromise. This needs to happen. And we had to move quickly, and I was super proud of my team. We were working 24 hours even on Sundays. Everyone knew the assignment. The project moved very smoothly. So it was, to date, that was one of my favorite projects, actually.
You've stayed in the diaspora, man. Like, what do you know? What do you know now that you wish you'd known then when you're in the diaspora? Don't tell me like you could have been a hash puppy or something like that.
Oh, how many baddies you could have got that I know now?
In terms of business and just navigating that whole diaspora space.
Look, I never went into the diaspora space wanting to be there for too long. I think I learned more from there to bring back here. So things to do with innovation. I can't stress this enough. It doesn't matter where our country is economically. Innovation is the next frontier that needs to drive the growth of the business, the country going forward. That is something I learned and not only just being in the diaspora, but even when I travel a lot, like when I go all over. You learn, like when I was in China last year.
Especially in China. Tell me, because like that was like your third eye being open in China. Tell me about the China experience.
Yeah, those guys are not messing around. Like I was even joking and I said, I think even the Chinese in Zimbabwe are lazy. These guys out here work, right? There's a level of discipline that
And
the
consistency.
Chinese have. I tell you, if we have half that as a country, it will be amazing. The Chinese, and I understand why their president does what he does. Okay? So when you're in China, WhatsApp doesn't work, Facebook doesn't work. Like, I needed a VPN roaming on my South African line to be able to get to WhatsApp. Okay? So when we got there, until I figured it out, nothing. You're dark. You're in the dark. So we get to China. It's this massive place, right? Everything works like it should. Clockwork. To the T. Whatever meetings you've got, people are going to be there on time. Conversations are going to be had. And they don't even do those 5-10 meetings. No. We've met, we've discussed, we move. Okay? The level of discipline that they have, and it's as if they are not tainted by Western culture. And you can tell that it's deliberate. They don't want to be...
They don't even want it in their space.
But they look at their culture and they say, this is who we are. We're a people and we need to build the motherland. And they teach it and enshrine it from when a child is born. That your sole purpose is for the benefit of the republic. Okay? And you will see how, so because we were there and we were paying, and we had the privilege to go to, what's this car manufacturer? Haval.
Haval, yeah.
Right. We get to Haval, we went to the R&D office, right? The R&D office is it's bigger than NASA, like NASA building, like it's really big. They were showing us their cloud system and how they connect to the cars and how everything is so integrated, right? And all the Chinese car companies work together. They compete and they work together.
Oh, as in like they share the technology and
So we're now going into EVs and batteries, and this is a new area for all of us. We all sit on a table. We all invest in ensuring that the EV companies are fully funded and everything. And I was amazed that the average age of the workers at Haval's R&D is 26. That's the average age, 26 years old.
Right.
And these guys, Haval alone, and the Haval, like the motor group, okay, they consume about 1 megawatt of power. That's Wange 7 and 8.
What do you mean, blood?
In terms of
Like just the Haval guys.
the Haval group, the Haval group consume a megawatt. Wangen 7 and 8 that we are so proud that's giving us power. Power's one company. That's being run on average of 26-year-olds. The level of innovation that those guys have, it is, so they give them so much leeway to be innovative, to go out there, to try new things, right? And they invest in those things. So you can imagine, they will invest, what we will see is the success of what they've invested in.
But we don't see the hundreds.
The hundreds
that
failures that they have done. But they believe that this is
in
innovation.
a pool of 1,000, one will actually bring back our money.
Exactly. So when I see them leaving China, going wherever they go, they will succeed in because of the level of discipline.
That's already been instilled in their software.
Level of efficiency in Ngeri Papoka. So when we were there, I decided to test one of these companies, a female-run engineering company that was there, and I was like, I want to give them this drawing. I want to see if they can. How long it would take to do a quote? It would probably take us about 3 days in Zim. I sent it to her around 9 p.m. Time I woke up the next morning, it was in my inbox.
Wow.
Literally.
You speaking of that, and speaking of time, like, how do we improve on that as a people? Like this whole
our culture is
African
bad.
men
My
time.
God.
Like, imagine we even at it. Like you don't have it's always the Swiss got that because they're on time, right? But we are the only ones who are like your African time.
Hey, Chief, You know, okay, so it's bad enough that we don't respect time and we are late. It's worse the fact that we just don't communicate and have no respect for it, right?
And it's like, after you're like 10 minutes late, they were like, yo, I'm running late. No, my guy.
Or after you call, like, yeah, call, but you knew you were going to be late. So we need to change our culture and we need to change the way we look and do things, right? You know, simple things like traffic light jam. The fact that we have failed to just give way to each other. Like the other day when I tweeted about an ambulance, I saw an ambulance struggling, right, to go through traffic. Like, he would have to be at the bumper of the next car for them to move out. There's no way we're going to make Zimbabwe prosper when our culture towards each other.
True.
Right? And I don't believe it is a political thing, it's an economic thing.
It's actually an us
it's
thing. I was
not-
saying that as well, right? It's an individual thing.
Right? If you look at China's history in the 80s, they were nowhere near modern society, right? But their culture didn't change. So who we are as a culture has to change, because that culture is what you're going to instill in your child, and your child is just going to grow up just as bad. And there's absolutely no reason whatsoever for us to not respect simple fundamentals like keeping time, like respecting each other. Like it makes no sense. If I get to a traffic light and you've got if I let you go, that means I can go. But if we don't let each other go, 30 minutes later we're there.
We're all stuck.
We're all stuck. So the sad thing is, if you, and even in the interview you did with Noma, you talked about
The guy,
trash.
the guy who comes online,
And you talked about the issue about, you know, the trash, you know, how people litter. Like, I don't understand how you open a window and you're driving a car with 4 seats and the only guy, and you're gonna throw out plastic chicken in. Like,
where I stay now, like we got my greenways, right? Like there's really beautiful spaces, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
people,
You live in nice places, huh?
No, man, come on. People actually like throw away their trash in the greenway just behind your own house. I'm like, yo, you stay there.
Yeah.
You just
it
put it
just-
out of sight, but you stay there.
I was driving from home, then I saw this guy park his car on the side, got out in a plastic bag, walked across Kune drain. So then I got there and I blocked him. And then I just opened my window and I said, "Come and depend no kura say bin." Like when I see people, like I get upset, but when I actually open my window, I just say to them, no, it's okay. Depend right? Because I can't fathom how. Like
I'll be guilt-tripped as well. If
Yeah.
you got me and act like that, I'll feel bad.
Because for the window and then you start shouting at him. You know, but I always say, oh, how now? You guys might not realize this, right? There are actually a lot of people who go through red traffic lights.
Yeah, true.
Right.
It's actually, there's been an increase. of that,
It's an increase.
Yeah.
Okay. So I then, like, I know somebody who lost a brother who got hit. And then I say, like, we're going to get to the next traffic light. And I'm right next to you. And I'm asking, so, like, why?
Yeah, because it's like the funny thing is that like it's the 1 minute you wanna save, like just a minute, like really, like you're already late, like
You're already late. So, like, how does that? So this decay is continuing, and it's going to manifest into other areas that we don't realize, like the debate I always have with the Prince Edward boys. Sure, you're letting your school decay, Magatarisa.
me as a Milton boy, and like yeah, these kids have it easy, like they have it real easy.
So we've got to a point where, and I was talking to these PE alumni guys, and I was like, you guys will go to a UCT and become a strong alumni, Coco. You'll not be an alumni go PE. That was your defining time. And you sit on your hands and be like, my government has to do something because it's a government school. We can't come together and just say, you know what, for the students. If it means that also plumbing, it doesn't really cost a lot, right?
You know, like that's what I was even saying, like with the place that we stay at and stuff like that. Like, I've always said this for the longest, since 2017. I've been saying that until we are ready to actually come together as communities, as small communities, and make sensible change in our small little communities. With we're having a water problem, we're having an energy problem. Let's contribute my $50 here, $50 there, and let's put a bowl here. You know, like I'm always fascinated by one guy who can actually put a bowl and put a tap for you outside.
Oh, yeah.
And people still
Yeah.
actually break the tap outside
Yeah.
and do weird stuff. And I'm like, this is just one person. Imagine if you had like 10 of those people coming together. Pamra in one.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine how then the whole place would look.
So even in my area, we came together as 3 roads, contributed to do pothole patching.
All right.
Okay, because we knew we were the beneficiaries of it. We definitely had people who defaulted, who felt like, some were prominent like lawyers, wanduramba and $20, and you're like, this is, and it's sad. I think the worst that also showed me how bad people can be. One of my neighbors, there was the burst pipe, the council pipe burst. At the time, she was a teacher. Like, you know each other. So my other neighbor, I've got a ball, he's got a ball. He was like, no, where I work, I can get the pipe. It'll just cost us so much. We fixed the pipe, no problem. We just told everybody, people contributed. The one lady up the road says, no, in the ball, why would I be fixing this pipe? Like, okay, no problem. We fixed the pipe. 3 days later, her ball packed, right? Now, she comes, she's now knocking at other people's gates, my ball packed, I need water. And people all say the same thing, Guti.
You got a
From
ball.
where? Aren't you telling us you have a ball, you're fine? So you see that in our societies. The sad thing is that it's like we like to be schooled. We like to be pushed into doing certain things. A friend of mine once said, all of a sudden,
They're paying the levy.
I don't know, but I live cancel us now, but
True.
But ukwana ngachida kubhadhara and ukacha attend ma meetings nechi kwedu kuma
Atobwiti nharani kakanyarara.
akanyara kuti zi otonzi ndozviri kutoitika pada kuti vakwa chakadika tikuuya notora mari dzodzoka and mari dzodzo dzinobuda. So the decay is real and we are not talking about it enough. We need to find a way where in society, in all the spheres, in schools, at home, we need to teach our children, look, learn to be responsible for, the smallest of things, because you need that service tomorrow.
True.
Right? You need to be and how are you going to be a leader if you're not going to do that?
And so so do you think that we're well behaved around white people?
Oh, here we go.
I had to ask that question, like, do you feel like because do you know the funny thing, right? I'll tell you, I was like, I mean, we've been to events or whatever, right? You know how people get rowdy in some of the events. But you ever notice that when there's a certain particular event that we know, like that when we go to a polo classic or whatever, like,
Oh, yeah.
like even chero mabattery glass, Google.
So apparently there was polo this weekend. Did you attend?
No.
I think that was going to be fun.
The weather was.
It was cold. It was cold. But I think, that one is a contentious one, but there's truth in it. And it's a reality. That when we are then now found in that space, people start to act right.
So what?
Munhu anoziya.
Huh?
Munhu anoziya kuti this is what I need to do. Anenge asingade chete.
Hey, so tell me something, right? Speaking about that, so what are the key subjects that do you think kids need to learn in school to actually be like at least proper human beings? Because the funny
Efficacy is something that is never taught, but I think needs to be taught.
and the funny thing, right? Speaking about what you're talking about, right? Yeah, HKC. Remember how we were like? Remember how like Form 1, Form 2, you felt like, yo, these guys are like the feeling of just saying morning sir to a prefect.
Yeah.
Like, yo, man. And it's only now when you've grown up, like, yo, the way that what I thought was bullying at that time, it actually straightened me up to be actually an upright citizen in society.
No, of course. Oh, how you would wakapfeka uniform wangosingangofamba mtown wakapfeka uniform wabvisa tie because you did not know who's going to see you and how this is going to turn out, right? That level of discipline should never be underestimated. Like you A-level students or like boys' schools. When the prefects are walking, people line in one line.
It's also they actually had their own path to the common room, and you'd be like, "Yo,
guys but you'd look up to it, right?
Yeah. And also like just the way you then carry yourself around people in society, you carry yourself with a bit of pride, and I've earned the right to be this person that I am. So, what are some of the key subjects that you think kids should
I think etiquette is going to be it's important because it goes both ways, men and women. It's something that is very, very important that we need to have in schools being taught. Issues to do, obviously, I don't think career guidance is done enough.
True.
Okay. It's a certain type of schools that would do it. It's not all type of schools. I feel like career guidance should be given to every school, government, private, you name it. They need to have those type of subjects. So there's that need to look at what shapes a person. It's not your intellect, what shapes behavior. Things like psychology can be something that even in high school can be looked at. They don't have to be burdensome and very heavy subjects. They just have to be subjects that can help shape the behavior and character of a student, so that they know. Because when you go to some of these schools that have them, when you go to these like really, really high-end schools, you realize that they teach these things. It's not inbuilt in the student.
Oh, yeah, true that. Like, I remember as an Arundel was one time, right? And why do not it's the basic, just paint ne cobra no check out so no it wasn't like it's easy staring him even just basically every morning was a cobra, but because I was like yo.
But look at how the Arundel girls carry themselves. Like my daughter was now in university, Arundel, and how she was is how we used to see Arundel girls when we were in school. That culture has maintained. Once you get there, they greet you, they're very respectful, they're well dressed, they're just. So it's something that you can tell that it's continuing and it's important, and whatever they're doing at that school it needs to be done by most other schools.
I'm sure you got a lot of friends that are out there in the diaspora. So what are some of the key things that they need if they wanted to relocate back home?
A lot of guts, for starters. No. Yeah, I know there are a lot of guys that I talk to that do want to come home, but you first need to accept that Zim is not it's not where you are coming from. Zim is its own. It's its own country, and don't walk into it and say, "Oh, I need this to work." Come evaluate what you are seeing, because I always say the same thing. If you're in France and you move to Germany and you move to England, it's not the same. They're just good and efficient the same in different ways. But when you come to Zim, evaluate Zimbabwe for what it is, right? Don't try to over compare. That only frustrates you. Just accept, okay, you're going back home. Look at the positive things, like the things that you miss doing. When on Tenga Sadza, we were having Sadza with the mate who had flown in from Canada, and he's around for a couple of weeks, and Mans was excited. He was like, guru. Akabata castle. Don't you requested? Akabata castle. So, and talking to him, you realize that he's not. He knows what Zim is, and he's not worried about it. He's not trying to be like Ndova Canada and Zim needs to change this. No. And I think a lot of people in the diaspora, yes, it doesn't mean that we need to accept we can't improve certain things. No, we're not saying that. We're just saying manage your expectations and come in knowing kuti there's just certain things that you can't necessarily change, and certain things that you have workarounds. Like on YouTube, I'm surprised the amount of what's this? Foreigners, expats actually, well, not expats, foreigners who actually have moved into Zim for work. One from America, one from Europe.
And they're like, no, we're not leaving this place.
Yeah, and what they've done is they've managed to look at the things that frustrate them and found ways around
them, yeah.
You know, and you look at it and you're like, no, this person is just looking positive. I'm in this country for work. I'm not going anywhere, so I need to make sure that A, B, C, D works for me. How do I do it? You know, so I think people in the diaspora should do the same.
And you know, like, you know, you're a successful entrepreneur. What are some of the key, like, what are some of the opportunities that are in Zim? So, like, what are some of the opportunities that are like that are in Zim currently?
I think the next frontier for Zim is actually going to be AI. Okay, in a big way. Because you know what I like about AI, what I've just noticed, AI cuts across anyway. It's tech that can be used
in any industry.
In any industry, the innovation that is required, I think we underestimate the potential of what innovation can bring. People are sleeping on what Inbox is doing. We're going to have this conversation in the next 2 years. And then we're going to be like, you know what? They
were onto something.
These guys were onto something, and they went really hard. So the entrepreneur space in Zim has funding issues. It doesn't have idea issues. Okay, and the person who's going to champion is the one who can unlock value externally, bringing it in, and then allowing that innovation to go mainstream in our economy. There's one thing that I believe Zimbabweans love to do. They like to pay for value.
True that.
Right? They really, no matter how hard it is, they will pay for value. That is why, for the longest, people were paying X amounts of money for ISPs when they were not getting the true value.
True that.
Right? As for instance, for internet. It's because you are willing to, because you want to pay for some form of value. So I see AI as being a very interesting space, but not a space that is being paid attention to from a policy side, from a funding side. Whoever taps into that is going to do some really, really amazing things.
And
Madira Namare.
and just to close it off, right? No, just before I close it off. What's causing the price hikes in property in Zimbabwe?
Demand and supply. Demand and supply.
Because I'm on my price and $1 million.
Demand and supply. Damn. Demand and supply. It's as simple as that. As now it's really complicated. And Mario, you know what? Ndinokuudza ndina sekuru wangu akatengesa mba yawo mbodobroka. I think aitengesa 340 at the time. That same house is sitting at 900K.
What are the 5 things you love about Zimbabwe, man? This story you told me is breaking my heart.
Kutiji?
What are the 5 things you love about Zimbabwe, man? Let's close this off.
Okay. The 5 things that I love about Zim. Number 1, I love how we enjoy our Fridays. We look forward to having a good time on our Fridays. I love our culture. I love our tourism. I, oddly enough, sometimes just love the chaos that we have. And I'll explain. When I travel and I go to where things are organized.
Orderly places, you feel like...
But when I see the chaos, I always say to myself, this is an opportunity waiting to happen that we just need to tap into. Because when things are chaotic, someone needs to fix it. You know, so you and I got to find out cancel. To cancel amna mari. But to don't change my traffic lights. Ese.
To pay lendy.
To know that I manage my traffic lights for the next 20 years. then imimi mozongo tipa zvakadai nechi we don't need your money, we'll self-fund it. So that chaos to me is always opportunity from an entrepreneurial mind, and then saying how do we do this. And then lastly, I love my people for the grit and grunt and who they are and what we go through. Zimbos they go through a lot, but sometimes you underestimate how we are there for each other.
True that.
You get it. When you live in the diaspora, you realize how you can be alone. But kunoguga, no matter how bad things are, you have food, and for being irresponsible. But we are there for each other. And it's something that you need to experience the diaspora at a weak moment for a lot of people. And this is, I feel like we don't even report the amount of suicides in Zimbabweans out there because they've got nowhere to turn to. They don't have anyone to, because Ikoko people are actually busy and people are, but Kunoko, we have that village, we still have it. We have that family unit. So there's a lot to love about Zim. And even six, I can give you an extra one. The entrepreneurial culture, yeah, but I'm liking the entrepreneurs that are making a difference, who are employing, who are there's the noise. You don't see the lawyers that are coming up. You don't see the guys who are starting financial institutions that are coming up. There are guys who are doing some very good consultancy work right now, feeding into entrepreneurs and new startups and whatnot, and on calls every day. These are people who have found a space and they're doing the most, and they're doing proper, legitimate businesses, paying taxes, contributing, doing the most. And they're the untold great story that we will see at some point, but we are not seeing right now. And I'm working on something as well to start celebrating them. I know Zimbos like to be quieter. But I believe that there's time to celebrate so that it gives hope to those who are also trying to say, no, don't give up. You know? I mean, the camera one is.
Masimba, thanks. It's been a pleasure, man.
As always, my guy.
Guys, if you're offended, that was the actual intention. If you're inspired, that was the intention as well. This has been the Bold Exchange.
Okay. In my wards, in my previous